¿Cómo estamos? Buen día, CWA. Hello, CWA family, C-dubs like I like to call you. And especially apropos for the introduction about to make is our senator from Hawaii. Aloha. You know, we use aloha a lot. You see it, hello, goodbye, but it's actually one of the most beautiful words in any language. It embraces a philosophy of love, peace, compassion, and mutual respect. And I think it describes our next speaker, our distinguished senator from the state of Hawaii, Mazie Hirono. Senator Hirono she embodies that, and a trailblazer, just like we are in CWA. CWA, we blaze a lot of trails with our executive officers, Amina Salam and President Cummings, first African-American presidents of CWA, myself and my sister Margaret Cook, first VPs of Latino descent in CWA. And indeed, Senator Hirono was the first Asian woman to be elected to the Senate of the United States of America. Senator Hirono has done a tremendous job fighting for our members in Congress because she knows what everyone in this room knows. Unions are essential to building a strong middle class and changing our lives for the better. This fight is personal for her. She has firsthand knowledge of the power of our union because she comes from a CWA family. Her mom had to work 2 jobs to put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. But thanks to the strength of a union job, she was able to persevere, working her way to serving her community in the halls of the United States Senate. Senator Hirono has never forgotten where she came from or what these fights are about. That's why she fights so intensely to protect what we do. Right now, she is lead sponsor of the Public Service Freedom Negotiate Act. I need a pie. Our private sector workers have a federally protected right to organize, and it should be common sense that all public sector workers are afforded these same rights, especially at a time when the public sector workforce is facing relentless attacks. Senator Hirono's bill is crucial to ensuring that every state, local, and municipal worker has the right to organize and bargain collectively. Senator Hirono has shown us what it means to be a poor working in closet. So please give a warm aloha to the senator from Hawaii, Senator Hirono.
Hello, everybody. I was just checking out what Frank's first name is because he asked me how to pronounce my last name, and then he basically butchered my first name. It's Mazie. Although the president has been known to call me that crazy senator from Hawaii. I think it's because he can't pronounce my name, but there are a lot of things that the president can't do, as we all know. So I'm told that I am the second to the last speaker between you and lunch, right? And you've heard from a lot of my colleagues in the House already, I think. I served in the House for 6 years. I have many, many friends there. And when I see Nancy Pelosi, mine was what known as the majority-making class in 2006, and we were the class that enabled Nancy Pelosi to become the first female Speaker of the U.S. House. So my heart is very much still with the House. When I see Nancy, I say my heart is in the House, although, believe me, I don't mind staying in the Senate either. But, okay, I feel as though we are, I'm certainly among friends. We are all friends here. And while Frank mentioned that my mother was a member of CWA, that does not tell the whole story. Because I am an immigrant. My mother brought 3 of her children here to this country to start a new life for us so that we could have a chance at a better life. I grew up on a little rice farm in a very rural part of Japan where my grandmother and my grandfather raised me. But due to my mother's courageous position, she decided that she was going to escape from my abusive father, who I never got to know, really, and bring us to a whole new country. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anything. I had no idea what the United States of America was. I had no idea about Hawaii, but my mother changed my life, and that's one of the life lessons I learned. One person can make a difference. My mother changed my life by bringing me to this country. And unions can change lives. So my mother started off, her workplace was not unionized. She worked for a small Japanese language print paper, which had no health care or anything. It was very scary as a child to know that my mother had no protections for any of us if we got sick. But then she eventually got a job at it was known as the Advertiser, one of the 2 daily newspapers in Hawaii. And at one point, many years later, her workplace unionized. And they went on strike. The big debate was whether they should join a national union or a local union. They picked CWA. You guys. So basically that changed my life. How? Because we used to move every 2 years. We were renting. We're an immigrant family. We were pretty poor. We had a lot of determination. My mother certainly did, but we didn't have much money. So we moved every 2 years or so. I went to a lot of schools. But when her workplace unionized, there was stability, better pay, all of that, and we were able to buy a house. You know how exciting that is for an immigrant kid? And so the kind of stability that unionizing brings, I cannot tell you how that really changed the trajectory of my life. And really, being in a unionized workplace, in my opinion, is one of the ways that people get into the middle class. There are 2 major federal laws that created the middle class. One is the National Labor Relations Act that enabled workers to organize for better wages, better workplace conditions. The other is the GI Bill. These are the 2 critical federal acts that created the middle class in this country. You can imagine World War II, all of the GIs come back, and there's a GI Bill. People like Senator Danny Inouye, Spark Matsunaga, they all came back. They had no money to go to college except for the GI Bill. It enabled them to go to school, to places like Harvard, Yale, Stanford. So that and the ability of unions to organize. But you all know, see, I came here with my staff, they gave me like a 15-page thing, which is really good because it set the stage. But I want you to know that as I stand here with all of you, you know that unions are under attack right now. In fact, all minorities. We have a regime. I have been calling this, I call it a regime because of its authoritarianism. We have a president who doesn't believe the rule of law applies to him, who doesn't think that checks and balances means anything, and that he thinks he can run this country through executive orders, including a lot of executive orders that have challenged unions. And one of the first executive orders he did was to fire half of the U.S. Department of Education. That's just one of the many things he's done that doesn't support unions. And you also know that he created an entire class of federal workers who have no civil service protections. What he wants is to be able to hire and fire people at will. So he has no respect and no support for unions. You know that. As you sit here, that is why you have a whole legislative program that you are pushing for. Then we have a United States Supreme Court. That is also, we have a Supreme Court majority which I describe as out of control. Some of you may know that one of the first indicators that we have a Supreme Court that is prepared to throw out decades of precedent was the ability of public sector unions to collect union dues or fees from people who were not, who chose not to sign on with the union, but who still got they had advocates. They still had a union that they could turn to in case they were fired and other things. So there was a case called Abood, 50 years of precedent, that enable the unions to collect fees regardless of whether the individuals chose to be a member of the union or not. So they decided there were people who wanted to get rid of that, a 50-year precedent, and there was a case brought by the against the teachers union called the Fredericks, and I watched that very closely. I watched what the Supreme Court was going to do on that case because it was going to really impact basically what public sector unions could rely on in terms of fees. So that decision, because it was a 4-4 Supreme Court, thanks to Mitch McConnell, who made the Supreme Court an 8-member, not a 9-member court, by not having any hearings on Merrick Garland. So that Frederick case, it was a 4-4 tie decision. And that's because Merrick Garland was not on that court. The minute Trump nominated and the Senate confirmed Neil Gorsuch, in another case called Janus, which I also followed, they overturned, the Supreme Court overturned the 50-year precedent in Abood. I think you probably were following that too. I think all the unions were following what the Supreme Court would do because it was an indication of how they were going to view worker rights. And sure enough, the Supreme Court said, Abood is out the window. So this is a Supreme Court that is prepared to toss out decades of precedent. The other one, of course, the famous one, of course, is Roe v. Wade. 50 years of precedent that we, the women in this country, thought we had a constitutional right to make decisions about our own bodies. And the Supreme Court majority said, out. So these are just examples of how the court, we have a Supreme Court majority that is not on our side. We have a regime that is not on our side. We have many members of the House and Senate not on our side. So what does that mean? We have to work hard to make sure that the people who get elected support the kind of bills that will actually help us. And the bill that I have is the Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act, and this enables the public sector unions all across the country to organize. I've been introducing this bill ever since I got to the Senate, and it's been a number of years now, and I'm going to keep on doing it. Because one thing is you got to stay the course. The battles we thought we had won don't stay won, whether it's voting rights, reproductive rights, civil rights. The battles we thought we had fought don't stay won, so eternal vigilance is required of all of us. So the Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act is really important, and I will keep on pushing it. And then I know that you all support the PRO Act, which makes your organizing efforts that much more sustainable. And these two bills go together, as well as I was just listening to my colleague Tammy Baldwin also talk about an important bill that she's pushing. All of us have bills, I would say, that supports our workers' right to organize and to do the things that our families and our communities rely on. So I just want to let you know that I'm on your side. I'm on your page. I have been. I know where I come from. I know why I'm here. I know who I fight for. I fight for the people whose voices often are not heard. And let me tell you a story of, I became the first Asian woman to get elected to the United States Senate. There is not enough diversity. I look out at all of you. You represent the diversity of our country, but we have a regime that does not support diversity. When I first ran for the Senate in 2012, I said, look at the Senate. It needs a lot more diversity. I said I would bring quadruple diversity to the United States Senate. First, I'm a woman. We need more women in the Senate. Two, I said I'm Asian. I would be the first Asian woman to get elected to the Senate, should I get elected. Third, I'm an immigrant. For the longest time, I was the only immigrant serving in the United States Senate. And fourth, I am a Buddhist. I am the first Buddhist ever to be elected to the United States Senate. Religious diversity is also important, but a guy yelled out, I was saying all these things at a rally of mine when I first was running, and a guy yelled out, "Yeah, but are you gay?" And I said, "Nobody's perfect." So we are working for that perfect union where there are civil rights for all of us, where union rights are protected, where workers' rights are protected, where you don't have a Supreme Court that just tosses out civil rights, voting rights. They just got through destroying the last remnants of the Voting Rights Act. You know, we need a Supreme Court that is going to actually pay attention to the ramifications of what they're doing, and not a Supreme Court majority that has an ideological, not a legal, an ideological agenda. There's so many battles that we have to fight. And so as the mantra goes, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and organize. And I'm with you on that. Aloha, mahalo.